Good Friday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's weather forecast, I will be tracking snowstorms that will continue across the Northeast through tonight. A major winter storm is likely next week with heavy snow and severe weather possible. And then an Arctic blast looks likely to end January and move into early February. I'll be tracking that and much more in this video. Looking out the door this morning at the synoptic setup here, we have that subtropical jet still activated across the southern and southeastern United States. To the north of there, we're going to see the colder temperatures overspreading the upper Midwest and the northern plains. But right underneath that jet, where we have that tropical moisture from the Pacific Ocean, that's going to be bringing in those milder temperatures for January. In fact, this afternoon, these high temperatures will be rising into the 50s and 60s down here across Texas, into Oklahoma and much of the Gulf Coast states here, including the Carolinas, 70s and 80s down into the Florida Peninsula here. But farther to the north of this subtropical jet, we'll have that deeper snowpack and also some colder air with temperatures into the lower and middle 20s, places like the Dakotas, the Twin Cities here in Minnesota, much of Wisconsin and through Iowa here with those colder high temperatures this afternoon. And then some milder temperatures up into the Northeast as well, hovering right around that freezing mark for many of us getting into this afternoon. We also are talking about snow across the Northeast, especially interior New England, from Maine back through Vermont, New Hampshire, and upstate New York, and even parts of Massachusetts here with that snowstorm that does continue. And it's that very same storm that did produce that rare enhanced risk of severe weather yesterday across Ohio here, with many wind reports, 20 of those being reported, especially up there toward Lake Erie in northern Ohio from yesterday. Many trees reported to be down yesterday with this system. But if you are with me on this video, definitely don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the like button down below. It helps to get all of this weather information out to more and more people, so I definitely appreciate that. And you also get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel by pressing both these buttons, so I definitely appreciate if you guys would do that down below. But looking out this afternoon across the Northeast, across portions of Vermont, New Hampshire, getting into upstate New York, Maine, and then getting down here toward the Boston area in Massachusetts, we have snow that will be flying this afternoon. That will continue into the evening hours here across those areas, starting to put an end to the snowfall slowly but surely toward the dinner time frame around 6 o'clock this evening. And then that saturation of the atmosphere will move farther to the east across eastern Canada by the time we get into later on this evening around that 10, 11 o'clock time frame, and will shut off that snowfall from west to east across parts of the Northeast. Additional snowfall accumulations through today and tonight across the Northeast. Some heavier accumulations up across coastal Maine here, 5 to 8 inches of snow definitely possible here with those snow blowers humming out there later on tonight. Another 2 to 4 inch snowfall accumulations here additionally on what we've already seen across upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of Massachusetts, including portions of Boston as well, getting through tonight. And that will be creating those minor to moderate travel inconveniences across parts of the Northeast, especially into coastal Maine here. So definitely take it slow and leave plenty of distance between you and the car in front of you as possible with those snowy roads out there. But as we go into this weekend on Saturday, January 21st, this is the noon time frame, and we're starting to see another system take shape across the southern and central plains here with a lighter snowfall shield across portions of Kansas, southern Nebraska, and back into the Front Range here into eastern Colorado. Some rogue rain showers across the Gulf Coast here, some pesky showers down here that will make it unsettled around that noon time frame. That will spread up into the Illinois and Missouri Valley here into the overnight hours into early Sunday morning around 3 a.m. Lighter snowfall may be flying across portions of Peoria, Illinois, getting up towards Chicago here, and then down towards St. Louis. And then farther south and east, where it is warm enough to rain, we could see some rain down here into Nashville, Atlanta, getting down into Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and then eventually over into the Carolinas. That will continue through the better half of the day on Sunday, continuing across the Ohio Valley here, places like Detroit, Toledo, getting up into Montreal. We could be talking about some snow even into Toronto as well, getting into Sunday afternoon. And then farther south, where it is all rain, we're going to see some heavier rain spreading out into the Atlanta metro area, places like Columbia, South Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, and then getting up in towards portions of Virginia and Maryland as well. And then going into Sunday night into early Monday morning, this is Monday, January 23rd at 6 a.m., we're going going to see a solid shield of snow again across interior New England here from northern PA through portions of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine as well, spreading out some heavier snow there. And then all rain again across that I-95 corridor, mainly from Boston down through Connecticut, New York City, and portions of New Jersey as well, with that warmer air off the ocean here, definitely providing more rainfall for those areas. But looking at the snowfall accumulations from that storm system through the weekend into early next week, we will be spreading out some decent snows across the Front Range into western Kansas here. We could be seeing some 4 to 8 inch snow amounts across those areas from Denver out across western Kansas, but some lighter snow across the Missouri and Illinois Valley and through the Ohio Valley as well, including Chicago, Detroit, getting down here into Peoria, Illinois, and perhaps even the St. Louis area as well. 1 to 2 inch snowfall amounts can be found here, and then it will pick up in intensity again across portions of the Northeast, again, north and west of the I-95 corridor from Maine down through Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York State here in the northern Pennsylvania. We could be talking about another 5 to 8 inch snowfall event going through late this weekend into early next week. Also on the rainfall side of this is going to be spreading out some pretty heavy rain across the southeast going through that time frame. Some heavier rains down here toward Atlanta, getting through the Carolinas into portions of southern Virginia, and then back across the Gulf Coast states here in those purple and red shaded colors, easily over an inch of rain. In fact, we could even see some spots 2 to even 3 inches of rain through central portions of the Carolinas going through this weekend into early next week, and that will provide us with the threat for flash flooding. The Weather Prediction Center has already gone ahead and hoisted a marginal risk for flash flooding across much of the Gulf Coast from East Texas, getting into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia here, much of Florida and South Carolina going from Saturday into that Sunday time frame. And then again, as we go farther to the north towards that time frame, we're going to see a lot of cold air up into Siberia and into portions of the Arctic here. And this is one piece of the puzzle we'll have to be looking forward to towards the end of January if we do want some snowfall farther to the south, because we do have a strong trough that's going to be digging down all the way into northwestern Mexico and West Texas as we get into early next week on Monday, January 23rd. That will move east across central and northern Texas on Tuesday the 24th before ejecting across the Tennessee and Ohio River Valley going into the middle of next week on Wednesday, January 25th. And this is our next winter storm opportunity during that time frame. So looking first on Monday, January 23rd, that low will be well far south. We're talking the Rio Grande Valley down here into Texas. And again, we're going to be spreading out some snow. Places like Albuquerque up into the Front Range here into southeastern Colorado. We could start to see some lighter snow flying around on Monday. But it's really into Tuesday where we start to see more interesting details come into fruition here. We could see a mixture of rain and snow down here into North Texas, getting into the Oklahoma City metro area, Tulsa, and then on up toward Little Rock here. We'll be very close to that snow line. Maybe some severe weather across portions of the New Orleans region and up towards Jackson, Mississippi. Possibly a marginal risk for severe storms getting closer to this time frame. And then as this low pressure system pushes north and east toward the central and eastern Ohio Valley, we'll be spreading out some heavier snow up here across the Missouri, Illinois, and Ohio River valleys going in towards the middle of next week on Wednesday, January 25th, and that will be spreading even farther north and east into portions of Canada and interior New England during that time frame. Now, looking at a couple different models, because there are still differences in solutions with where the heaviest axis of the snow will lay out. First, looking at the European high resolution guidance, you can see some decent snows here, even into North Texas around the DFW Metroplex, on up toward Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and even the Little Rock region. We could be talking about some solid few inches of snow with this model, and then some heavier snow spreading out across southern Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. That could be spreading into Pennsylvania. Now, the difference is the GFS model is a little bit farther west here and slower of a solution. So it puts more of the snow back to the west across portions of still the Oklahoma City metro area, and then on up into portions of the Chicagoland area, getting in on more snowfall with the slower solution, Indianapolis as well. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. And just looking at another model here, this is an ensemble, taking all the errors that we see in all the operational models and putting them into this model here. It does still interestingly show a heavier snow event somewhere across the Illinois Valley into the western Ohio Valley, even even with the ensemble here. So there still are differences. We'll be fine-tuning this in the coming days to give you more details on where the heaviest snow will be. But looking at the differences in the models here, if the low pressure system starts in East Texas and travels up through portions of middle eastern Tennessee into the mid-Atlantic, the heavier snow will lay out from Detroit down through Little Rock here into northeast Texas. But if the low is a little farther west towards central Texas and moves on up through the western and then eventually the central Ohio Valley, that will lay out the snow again from Detroit and then eventually back towards Chicago, Kansas City, and then back here into portions of Kansas and then the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. So the little differences in the track of this system will mean big differences with the snow totals across some of these cities here, including the Chicagoland area, as we get closer towards next week. But what is known is that this system is going to be moisture laden. We're going to have lots of moisture across the southeast. Heavy rain will be flying across these areas, across portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia here, even into Tennessee and the western Carolinas. In these blue shaded colors, we're easily talking an inch, if not 2 inches of rain going into that Tuesday and Wednesday time frame, early to middle next week. And then by the time we get in towards the late week time frame, toward that Thursday to the 26th, we could be spreading that heavier rainfall up toward the I-95 corridor with the heavier snow on the backside as we get in towards that time frame, with again around an inch to an inch and a half of rain from Boston down through New York City during that time frame. But just going over the next 7 days, going from now through next Friday on the 27th, a very active period across the eastern 2/3 of the country. But back off to the west, California here, the entire state will be bone dry going through that time frame. Some moisture will be across portions of the Intermountain West here to help out some of the drought, but again, the heaviest amounts will be farther off to the east. And then as we get into late January into early February here, from Friday the 27th through February 2nd on Thursday, February 2nd here, colder air will be infiltrating the western 2/3 of the country here, and that is going to be spelling some changes, with a lot of this cold air moving in on the backside of the system towards the middle of next week on Wednesday, and that really filters down into the upper Midwest and northern plains going into Friday, January 27th. That will spread out farther to the east across the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic as well. And then by the time we get into next weekend on Sunday, January 29th, to close out the last weekend of January, we'll still have these purple and white shaded anomalies across portions of the northern and northeastern United States, promising some very cold air with the core of the polar vortex still into central Canada at this point. Looking at the potential high temperatures during this period on Friday, January 27th, you can see all the below zero temperatures are up into Canada here. We could be as cold as 40, if not 50 degrees below zero, believe it or not, across northern Quebec here, getting into that Friday, January 27th time frame. But across the U.S. here, on either side of zero, up here into portions of the eastern Dakotas, getting into western Minnesota, and then modifying with less snowpack, potentially across portions of the Ohio Valley into the teens and 20s for highs, and then the milder air along the immediate Gulf Coast with temperatures in the 50s there. And then going into late next weekend on Sunday, January 29th, more of those colder temperatures and even those below zero high temperatures will be infiltrating much of the Intermountain West and the northern plains, places like the Dakotas, western Minnesota, back into Montana and Wyoming. We could be seeing high temperatures on Sunday next weekend below zero. In fact, maybe even double digits below zero during that time frame. But that doesn't stop there. We have another push of cold air going into early February. This is February 2nd. Another lobe of the polar vortex will swing down across the northern plains during that time frame, and that will swing across the Northeast and Ohio Valley into that February 5th time frame, again with the core of the polar vortex farther to the north. But again, the spokes of energy with this polar vortex will move across the Midwest, the northern plains, and the Northeast during this period, bringing every once in a while some very cold temperatures across these areas. And we'll also see an active subtropical jet continuing through early February, at least the first week in February, which will promise more snow chances with that colder air, especially farther south as well, again across Texas, the deep south, and perhaps the mid-Atlantic as well, places that haven't seen much snow this winter. And again, you can see more of these troughs will be digging down well far south again toward the Rio Grande Valley, and then moving up the East Coast or the Ohio Valley, getting into that first week in February. So to recap the weather forecast for you guys, snowstorm continues across parts of the northern and northeastern United States through tonight. tonight. A major winter storm looks very likely going into next week, especially with the heavy snow and severe weather potential. And an Arctic blast is likely from late January through early February, especially across the north and the northeastern United States, getting into that first full week in February. Thank you guys so much for watching. I definitely appreciate it. Remember to like the video down below, give it a thumbs up, leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. Have a great Friday, everybody, a great weekend, and I will see you all in the next video.